Well, the Canterbury Tales has something for everyone, and that is the genius of a tale collection. So he gathers together a group of people and they all tell their own stories. So some people's stories are very, very rude, some are serious. They do lots and lots of different things. So I think that what's also really important about the Canterbury Tales is that the principle behind them is that everyone has the right to tell their own story.
On the 25th of October, 1400, Geoffrey Chaucer, the poet and author of the Canterbury Tales, died. Marion Turner is J.R.R. Tolkien Professor of English Literature, Oxford, and the author of the biography Chaucer, A European Life. Good morning to you, Marion.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Tell us a little bit about Geoffrey Chaucer's early life then.
Well, Chaucer was born in about 1342, so a few years before the pandemic hit, pandemic on a massive scale that wiped out maybe a third or a half of Europe's population. So he then lived through a time of real social mobility and social change in the wake of that catastrophe. He was born in London in an area called Vintry Ward, which was an area that had more immigrants in it than any other. He was the son of a merchant and grew up mixing with people from many countries who spoke many languages. He himself was a multilingual man, and he saw the ships coming in, which brought spices from as far away as Indonesia and took out English wool, which headed out around the world. So he really lived at the center of a global trading hub. And then from that city background, he then went to have his early jobs in great households, so working for aristocrats, first of all as a page boy, then as a soldier, and he was taken prisoner in the 100 Years' War. And I'm still in his teen years at this point.
Wow, goodness me. I want to talk about the Canterbury Tales, obviously, but you've written Chaucer, A European Life. Explain about his European travels.
Yeah, so people often think that back in the 14th century, everyone stayed at home and think of Chaucer as very English. But in fact, most of his literary influences were in fact from Italian, French, Latin, and he traveled very widely. So he traveled mainly as a diplomat on the business of the king. In particular, he went twice to Italy. And if you imagine him, riding to Italy, it took several weeks at that time. But he went once to northern Italy, to Lombardy, and on another trip to Genoa and Florence. He went many times to France. He also went to Navarre, which then was an independent country. Now it's part of Spain, but it was an independent country then. So lots and lots of travels. And on those travels, he picked up manuscripts by people such as Dante and Boccaccio in Italy. And it was his encounter with that poetry that really enabled him to change what English poetry was capable of.
And very briefly on the Canterbury Tales for people, the reason I know a bit about the Canterbury Tales is because I had to study at A level. I did enjoy the Canterbury Tales. For people who haven't, why would you recommend the Canterbury Tales to people who have not read them?
Well, the Canterbury Tales has something for everyone, and that is the genius of a tale collection. So he gathers together a group of people and they all tell their own stories. So some people's stories are very, very rude, some are serious. They do lots and lots of different things. So I think that what's also really important about the Canterbury Tales is that the principle behind them is that everyone has the right to tell their own story, that people will tell all kinds of different stories, but that we should listen to multiple voices, not only voices of authority, but we should allow less important voices to be heard as well.
Fantastic. Marion, thank you so much for that. That is Marion Turner. She is J.R.R. Tolkien Professor of English Literature at Oxford, and she's written a couple of books, the biography Chaucer, European Life, and also The Wife of Bath, a biography, out in January. And that's the one that I always remember, The Wife of Bath.